my friends. I'm Rick, and this is History Revisited. So, you know, if you can't be much of anybody in this country and not to have heard of the stuff going on over there in Iraq, or excuse me, in Israel between Hamas and the Israelis and the Palestinian people, and kind of being stuck in between them, and wonder what the hell's going on over there. What's really going on over there? So, it's one thing in our country because I'm just being honest here. I, there's so much going on our own damn continent. So many things going on in our own system. So many ways that we're all just struggling every day and trying to comprehend why it is we're struggling so damn hard and not seeming to make any ground while we're all being told how great things are or how crappy things are by people that won't do nothing to fix either one of them, right? So in this case, I thought, I don't know a whole lot about what's been going on over there, other than the occasional bits and pieces that make the various news channels and stuff like that, which is not a whole lot. So in the last 20 odd years, there hasn't been a whole lot of real serious heavy, I guess what, been 10 years, not quite 10 years, since the last big brouhaha with Hamas, between the IDF and the Hamas. The Israelis have been dealing with, and the Palestinian people have been in a bad spot since the very beginning. By definition, if you want to go, whose turf's what? People sitting there, when you get there, generally speaking, are the people who own that property. Now, what I mean by that is, if you own a property and you move away, you just choose to up and move away. You move to another country and you live there for 30 years, 20 years, and you don't do nothing with your property. At some point, that property ceases to become your property because there's several processes involved, yes, but eventually it's going to be absorbed by the local authorities in some form or another, who then will repurpose the property, whether they sell it off to pay your debts or to just to sell it off so they don't have to pay for upkeep or whatever. So over the generations, lots and lots of Jews moved away from Judea, moved away from Israel and Palestine and all those places from biblical eras. So all through the years, especially over the last 200 years, lots and lots of people moved. And once you do that, that's no longer your turf. Basically, you agreed to vacate the place you claim was your home. So the people left behind, they didn't vacate it. They didn't give up their claim to it. If anything, their claim was strengthened even more. So most of these Palestinians are descendants of Palestinians who've been living in and around that area for the entire history of written history that we know of, and probably beyond that too. So this puts us a bit of a pickle. So at the end of World War II, there was a huge upheaval in a lot of places in the world, a lot of countries. Lots of things changed radically, especially in the handful of years after 45. You really have to go down and individually look at just how much changed, politically speaking, around the world, and more so than the Middle East and than any other place, maybe Eastern Europe, maybe, right? So the Israelis start coming home, and they start returning in droves. And first it's a small amount, then that number doubles, and it becomes millions. And at some point, the country is recognized as the Israelis' new country, and setting off a whole bunch of bullshit. Meanwhile, so at the same time, you basically displaced a bunch of people who have legitimate claims to be there. This has happened throughout American history, period. American history is no different. We've done this to numerous cultures. Don't pretend like we didn't. We displaced entire native populations, in some cases eradicated them. Wiped them out. Whether it was all one time or if it was through attrition and disbursement eventually, there's a number of, more than a few, Native American tribes that are no longer in existence. And it wasn't just them. So when we got into the Southwest, what did we run into? Spanish settlers, Spanish colonists. People had been working their way further north from Mexico into Panama and now the Panama region, Mediterranean. Or, So what did we do? Americans, what'd y'all do? Texans, Texans. Hey, Texas, Texas. What'd you do? That time when you were briefly your own damn country, you you started a war with Mexico, and then Mexico took you up on it. And yeah, you held your own for a little while, but you were actually getting your ass whooped. And then Big Brother America stepped in to help you out. Yeah, yeah. Texas, the only state in America that's been its own country and seceded twice. And I suspect secretly there's a bunch of y'all down there wanting to secede again. Y'all think Texas should be its own damn country, and I think that's been there an underlying drive at the political level for a long time. They don't talk about that shit. So when we take it at Hamas, or not Hamas, but the Palestinians, you take Hamas out of the picture altogether. Just look at the Palestinians as a people. There's a whole shitload of them jammed into some small areas. And ironically, they're not 100% isolated. They have a large coastline. They have access to Egypt via a border crossing to the south. So you could recognize the Gaza Strip as Palestine flat out. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a perfect answer. There's no such thing as a perfect answer. There's never going to be a perfect solution. None whatsoever. And short of a biblical genocide on par with Nazi Germany, you're not going to eliminate them you're not going to eliminate either the Jews or the Palestinians. Just isn't going to happen. Meanwhile, right, keeping these people in destitute situations makes them desperate. How is this a good plan? Israel, I have to ask you, your leadership there, Netanyahu, when I know you hate the damn Palestinians. That's well documented, and that's why I truly question just how much of this stuff wasn't allowed to occur to give you an excuse to do what you're doing to the Hamas right now. And by definition, unfortunate circumstances, the Palestinians that just happen to get in the way, right? I've been watching y'all dropping bombs and artillery rounds via all the wonderful news services over there that are recording this crap. And I have to wonder, you dropped a whole entire city block of apartment buildings. I saw 6 of them get dropped in one shot, in one round of artillery rounds. So they had to drop all 6 of these apartment buildings to get the Hamas cell that's, supposedly that may or may not be there. Hey, you do what you got to do. I'm saying it over and over again in these videos. Hamas, you got it coming. You're going to die. You're going to die. And you need to die because you're murdering fuckasses who use your religion as an excuse to justify your hatred and your rage. And you want to kill people. You want to kill Jews. That's all you fucking want to do. And you made it very, very clear to the Jews. And I have no sympathy or empathy whatsoever for you when they come back and return to favor in spades, because that's how this plays out. That's how this plays out. You can't have this never-ending cycle if nobody's willing to stop it. But at the same time, how often, if you want one side wants to stop it, the other side keeps wanting to beat you up for it. How long do you do that? How long before you finally give up on the peaceful side of things and just beat the brakes off the other fuck? Maybe sometimes, just sometimes, that's how it takes. I was a big kid in school. I was heavy set, 230 pounds at 18 years old, 6'2". I could bench press a freaking Buick back then. But I had a belly, so a lot of people, and I was a passive aggressive, still am. And I would walk away. I was taught to walk away from a fight. Don't fight. Just walk away. It's when you don't do that you let other people run shit. Don't make that as a mistake as cowardice, though, or indifference. I've had a few associates back in the day who made that mistake and thought they're going to run over me. They thought they're going to bully me somehow. At that point, I was also taught by an uncle who was in the damn Marine Corps, was in the recon side of the Marine Corps, and was a nut. He had some very strong beliefs in how fighting should go down. And one thing was, there's no such thing as a fair fight. Everything's game. And the longer, number two, the longer a fight goes, the more likely you're going to lose it. So his philosophy was strike now, strike fast, strike with everything you fucking got, and move forward. So, that said, you just come out of nowhere and explode onto the screen and beat the brakes off. You beat the bejesus out of somebody. Everybody's watching. Oh, let's go out back. Fuck you. We're doing it here and now in front of God and everybody here as witnesses. They're going to see either me get my ass whooped and go to the hospital where they can pry open my jaw and take a chunk of your ass out of my mouth, or they're going to witness a horrific scene of me just brutalizing your dumbass. That was my 20-something back in the day. I'm not saying it was a wise thing. I'm not saying it was a smart thing. I'm just saying that's how some things have to be addressed. In this situation over here, yeah, that's just how it's got to go. But that aside, the very situation that the Israel that you're doing over there, you're perpetrating, is actually in the long term very detrimental to everything you want. You're not going to get peace if you've got estimated 2.5 million people living in this Gaza Strip who have very little rights and have no future, no hope for a future. They're trying to have a future. I mean, that's true. I mean, these people would love to have a life that doesn't involve being in fear of starving to death and going and freaking dying from lack of medical care. So you have 2.5 million people that are jammed into this relatively small area, and over half, if all the numbers are to believe, over half that is under 20. So you basically got 1.5 million of very, very scared, desperate, disillusioned punk kids. And historically speaking, my friends, I ain't kidding you when I say kids can be some of the most vicious people in the world. Because in part they don't know better, and in part because once they're trained, when they learn young. Look, it's not hard for me when I listen to the Republican Party in America go on and on about privatized privatized schools. We want to get the public education system. We want to take it out, destroy it, because we want everybody to go to private schools. This is America. How many private schools do you know? Honestly, Americans, ask yourself, how many private schools do you know in your community or in your vicinity? Of those schools, how many of those schools are religion-driven? So you want these people to go to Christian schools or Catholic schools. But there's also Arabic schools and other schools. You want them to go to those schools too. So what happens with it doesn't fit we're going to try to indoctrinate them into a religious belief is what we're trying to force on our children. And they're being very insidious and clever about how they're approaching this. And nobody so far that I've noticed on any other side has woke up to that fact. Maybe what do I fucking know? But when you get such a large population of people are so freaking desperate, then what else have they got? What choices have they got? Not a lot. So when you get crazy outfits like this Hamas come along and 100 other nefarious organizations who offer them security, regular food, perhaps a little money in their pockets, some prestige, this illusion that they're part of an organization that cares, people that give a shit about them. Even though the top people in that organization have only purposes to use them as cannon fodder. Sad part is none of them know that. They don't get it. So you look at the region, many of them want to work. They're hungry for it. The Israelis intentionally reduce the amount of work passes that are available for people to go work in Israel because there's not enough jobs in the Gaza Strip whatsoever, period. And they can't make enough of their own jobs to support an economy. This is a problem because you're making these people extremely desperate. And when you take them and you give them no hope and no recourse and no opportunities, is it hard to expect that the worst is going to come out? I mean, seriously, really? We see some pretty rough conditions in other countries in the world. There are some quote, third world countries. I always loathe that term third world. It's one world. We're all one world. Just some of us have more money than others. And that money's an illusion. Like I said, in America, the richest country in the world, yet over half the population is freaking poor on the poverty level. Literally on the poverty level. And are totally dependent on a whole slew of public and private charities just to get by every day. And it ain't getting better. It's gotten worse. We're if we had record unemployment, well, then we would be right there in about the time to hit the frickin' 1920s when the economy really fell apart in this country. So we talk about the wealthiest country in the world, and I have to ask that question all the time. Wealthy for who? Are you wealthy? Do you consider yourself well off? What is wealthy to you? What would wealthy be to me? Wealthy would be to me the ability to have enough money to come in on a weekly basis that I don't have to work 60 hours every week to get. I should be able to work a 40-hour work week and have enough money to pay for all my bills, the occasional unexpected bills such as medical bills and repairs that come up, and be able to put a little money back into a bank account for savings and for retirement. It would be nice to put 10%, away for that sort of thing. Kind of like what we call Social Security does for us. It's a mandatory retirement fund for everybody, just in case you just don't, you work a job your entire life and the companies you work for don't decide to give you anything like, I don't know, retirement funds and benefits of that nature, let alone a working income that can allow you to save significantly for yourself. The majority, better than 50% of the world or America's population are not in that category. That's the facts, and it's gotten that way over the last 20 years. It's gotten far worse than it was in the 60s and 50s. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And we have people that keep electing to office who are hell bent on making sure it gets worse. So if we have that trouble here, it's hard. I can't put myself in those folks' shoes. At my worst situation, my worst point, when I found myself literally homeless, I was fortunate to borrow my mom's station wagon. If you go back to the very beginning of this channel, well, I guess it's not this channel. Well, yeah, actually this channel too. The very beginning, I was living in an RV, first in a car for 4 months. And I went to work for the boss I worked for. I still work for. One of the reasons people say, why do you still work for? I could make more money working for other people. I know that for a fact. But he was there when I really needed some help. So I had help. And I didn't get a handout from the government. And I didn't have bootstraps to pull myself up by. I just worked my ass off and sacrificed everything I could because it was this or the street. That was where I was. That was where my wife and I found ourselves, literally one leg on the street. So I worked for 4 months. My wife lost her job and had to go on disability because of her epilepsy. My mom passed away. All of this hit at the same time. Right before Mom passed away, she and my sister helped my wife and I get the money together to buy an old RV. We paid $5,000 for this 96 Class C RV, and we lived in it for damn near 2 fucking years. 2 goddamn years. Anybody tells you living in an RV is cheap, they'll have no clue what that's really about. It's not cheap in any means. But looking at rent, I was trying to rent a place, and the amount of money that they want in bumfuck Des Moines, Iowa, $100,000 and up for a crappy place. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to give other people my money for a place for the privilege of being, never knowing for sure 1 month to the next whether I'm going to be told I got to move the next day for some reason. If they've sold the building. The building's being torn down. I'm not paying enough rent. Who the fuck knows? So I decided we needed to buy a house because the mortgage is cheaper. And it took us 2 years to do that. And we had help. We had help by I found a really damn good realtor, and he's the one who turned me on to the credit union that gave me the 100% financing to buy this house. I had never even heard of 100% financing. I didn't know that was a thing. So all the money the wife and I had saved, and what little I got out of my mom's estate, was because by the time we got done, after Medicaid took 50 grand of it, and taxes took another 17,000 of it, and we paid the rest of her medical bills and other things off. My sister and I split. I ended up with about 4 grand. My cut was about 4 grand out of $120,000 that we were able to get from my folks' acreage. It was terrible, and it took us a year to sell that house because we kept getting crazy people coming in wanting to buy it for half its price, and I wouldn't sell. So that happened to the lady next door. She sold her house, and she let her realtor talk her into the first guy that offered her money. So she took 40 grand less than what the house was worth. That's just stupid or questionably, shady. So, like I said, when we look at these things and we look at how the life and stuff is for these people over there, it's not hard to see how desperation is going to set in. And they have no real solid infrastructure that they control. The Israelis shut off the water, the power, the food, the medicine. Palestinians are going to die. They're going to die slowly and horrifically, or they're going to die fast, or they're going to flee. Is that the plan? Is that the goal? Because Israel, you could have done, could have, should have, would have. I mean, come on. You could have helped them build a frickin' port. You could have helped them get some industry and some economy going for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. I mean, I say this often when I talk about places like when America was at Afghanistan. Afghanistan is grossly different from Iraq, by the way. So spending 20 years in Iraq and spending 20 years in Afghanistan isn't the same thing. And from my own personal experiences, my understanding how this, potentially worked, we had every right to claim Afghanistan as a territory, an American territory, and we could have come up with 50 different ways to explain how we took it, because at the end of the day, Afghanistan as a country is actually a non-starter. It's not an entity. At the time we came in, there was no Afghanistan government. There was just an illusion of something that predated the current regime, but there was no actual government until we set one up for them. And what happened after that, as soon as we bailed out, ISIS took over. The terrorists took over. Well, that was going to happen all along anyway. It happens in history everywhere. When the occupying force gives up and goes home, whoever's left behind fills in the gaps. All you got to do is outlast them. That's the whole philosophy behind the Vietnamese people for most of their existence. That's they outlasted every foreign occupation of their shores. And today, from everything I can see, Vietnam's a very nice country. It's not some bastion of frickin' communist hatred for the rest of the world or for the West, like some countries have turned into. And in part because of doings of our country's doing. So Israel, you didn't do yourself any favors. You set up the situation. I think purposely. I think you set it up for these people to fail. I think you encourage Hamas to pull the bullshit that they did, and then I find it highly, highly convenient that the lion's share of the IDF had been moved to the other side of the country, leaving the entire region undefended. Right before a big ass freaking sneak attack is supposed to go off, especially when Netanyahu was given warning by the Egyptians months in advance of when this was supposed to go down. So you had plenty of time to set this up to start to take advantage of the situation if that's how this played out. Because conspiracies is just a guesswork and innuendo. at the end of the day, with a little bit of a kernel of truth, because that's how the best of these things work. Anyway, what are you going to do after this? You're going to occupy Gaza for 20 years? Or is this the first step in that illusion that you're going to be one nation that everybody would like to see come out of it? So the only way to be one nation is for you to absorb the Palestinian people, and somehow, I don't know what. What are you going to do? Ask the British and the Irish how that played out. And, how does that work for you? How many people died because of this bullshit? And how people are just going to keep on going. Yeah, so you're going to go eradicate Hamas, and they damn well deserve to eradicate something else to just fill in the gaps. So if you don't give these people hope and direction and a reason to believe in the future for themselves and a reason to want to do so, not to mention that better than half the country are extremely impressionable youth, good Lord, shouldn't you be impressing them with the right things, with the good things, to give them the hope to change? You've got half their damn population at that age where you really could make a difference on their entire next couple generations of outlook if you were to approach that from that angle instead of allowing the bad guys to exploit them in their own way. That's my opinion on this. Till next time, whatever. Enjoy the weekend.